Welcome, audience members. You are now entering the Parliament of the Daleks, a Doctor Who podcast focusing on the toys, action figures, and merchandise from the past, present, and future of our favorite sci-fi franchise. I'm your Dalek fanatic host, Wade, and today we'll be taking a look at B&M's newest summer wave for 2021. On this episode, Al Spills the Beans. Alright, so it's pretty exciting because we now have a new B&M wave, and this is something that we have been waiting for ages and ages and ages. We're going to be talking about our thoughts on all of the sets released, and the first one up is we're going to be talking about the Sensorites collector figure set. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce our other co-hosts for this evening. Tonight we have joining us Jack.
Hello.
Also joining us is the figure expert, Alex.
Hello.
And last but not least, we also have one of the biggest Classic Who fanatics out there, who's literally an expert about everything Classic Who. We have James joining us.
Thank you. Hello.
All right, guys. So this is pretty exciting. We finally have the new B&M wave announced. Al produced a video to show everything. And we're going to start off taking a look at the Sensorites set. James, what are your thoughts on this set?
Well, it's brilliant to get Sensorites. I can't quite believe we got Sensorites because like years ago we would never have expected to get new 60s monsters, and it's just sort of insane. But there is a big but. With quite a lot of the figures this wave, there's little problems that I have with them which could have been sorted out so easily, and it just sort of puts a dampener on them. With the Sensorites, the one thing I would say is the stethoscope. It's just a bit naff. The painting on the wire, because it's just painted onto the body, it just looks a bit naff. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, it actually bugs me a lot that the Sensorites did not have a sculpted stethoscope, or at least for the wire connecting it all the way instead of being painted.
On the design, on the Affable Design Company, they have a wire to them, so I feel like it might have been the original intention to have a wire, and it's not worked out, so they've just gone, sod it. We'll just have it painted on, which just, as I said, it just looks a bit naff.
Yeah, like my theory is that I think with these, they probably tried it out, and maybe the actual like stethoscope piece was just too flimsy. They couldn't maybe get it to actually work. Maybe there's sort of string pieces sort of like snap or whatever. So I can sort of understand why they've done it, but at the same time, it does look a little cheap.
I think it might be down to because Character Options doesn't have a great track record with retooling molds. So I think maybe they thought they would have to retool the torso to have a plug for the wire and didn't want a chance ruining it, because I think they can milk this Axon mold for a few more characters.
That's actually a pretty fair point. And we'll lead right into you, Jack. What's your thoughts overall on this set?
Pretty naff, to be honest. I know I'm the resident hater in this, on this podcast, but I'm looking at him now. Ian isn't in this set, so don't worry about it. But the First Doctor is, and he's got the wrong trousers. He's missing his lips for some reason. His jacket is a different shade of sort of like a blackish brown to his arms. The Sensorites have got a brown wash to their feet for some reason. It's, I tell you what is actually nice is that they've got ankle articulation, which is cool. Always nice to see that they're willing to add articulation.
Now, did the original Axon figure have ankle articulation like that? That's actually one I don't own, or at least yet.
No, it didn't. No.
It was just one solid piece, which means they've retooled the lower leg.
Well, that's pretty nice that they were able to do that then. That made it easier for them, I bet, to do Vord figures.
Well, the lower leg on the Vord is completely different as well, because like the flipper feet have slightly more ankle high feet.
Did they resculpt it from the shin down by any chance?
Probably. No, but I'm thinking, could they use this for a Jamie?
It's sort of got wrinkles in it as cloth.
Yeah, too many creases in it.
I was going to say maybe that's why they gave him ankle articulation, but I guess not.
The Vord one doesn't have any wrinkles in it.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe they could do that.
I was thinking, did Jamie have like socks with shoes, or did he have like boots?
Yeah, it had socks that went up reasonably high.
I think maybe they'll use it for a Jamie then, yeah. I don't know, my thoughts, I think this is probably the weaker of the 3 packs, because you've got a Doctor that we've technically already had and a sort of half-hearted monster.
Alex, what are your thoughts on this 3-pack?
Well, I think it's very good, but a little bit. There are things that drag it down. For me, I adore the Sensorite figures. I think they're amazing. I mean, of course, they do have that little disadvantage with the stethoscope, but honestly, apart from that, I have very few issues with them. I mean, I even kind of like the slight sort of dirty wash on the feet because it sort of shows that the sort of suits they're wearing have got a bit worn where they've just been walking around the set and stuff. And I like the inclusion of their sort of like, I don't know what you call them, the accessories they have, the sort of sensor things. I think they're pretty cool. Because you remember back in like the day when like B&M figures would never come with accessories, but now we're not just getting new characters, but new characters that actually have proper new accessories as well, that can hold and everything. I think that's pretty cool. And also like the fact that we've got the variation between like the Elder Sensorite who has like the sort of black sash on him and the sort of different colours in the beards. Although this is really minor. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, and it's incredibly nitpicky, and I really shouldn't even bring it up because it's pointless. But if you look at the eyebrows of the standard Sensorite, he has like the sort of white colour that's on like the Elder One's beard. So part of me's thinking, did they get that wrong in production and they're actually meant to be those paint apps for the eyebrows and eyelashes, like meant to be the other way around?
I'm looking at them now, and they are quite light. But then the elder Sensorite's eyebrows are a different color to his beard. So
See, I've seen something now. Am I imagining this, or has he got new hands? Because he looks like he's got sort of like a wrinkled glove on his hands.
Yeah, the hands are new.
Yeah, they knew. I didn't know that.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. They've actually gone to the effort to actually give them new hands because it wasn't like an absolute necessity. Like they could have used the ones from the Axon, which I believe were originally from the Fifth Doctor as well. So it'd be like a reuse of a reuse. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So I'm honestly, and I think the head sculpt design of the Sensorite is great. I think they've captured it honestly so spot on. I'm really impressed with them. And for me, these Sensorites are my personal favorite figures of this entire wave. But for me, the issue with this set is definitely the First Doctor. I just cannot understand why they've given him those stupid reddish brown check trousers with his like sort of very dark brown coat. Why couldn't they have done him in like sort of warm creamish grey trousers?
That's what I want to know.
There's a lot of color reference photos that, or maybe colorized or whatever, that have that sort of slight creamish tint to them. They're not like pure grey like our previous releases have been. So I thought that would be a pretty good one they could have done.
It would be a pretty believable costume variant in my mind.
Just don't understand why they did it, and I just don't like the combination of those reddish trousers with the more screen accurate waistcoat and blue tie. Like for the 13 Doctors set, I think he was okay for that sort of one-off sort of niche thing that just
And that was supposed to be for the web planet, right?
yeah. And for at least for that episode, there's literally no color reference photos. So if you really wanted to like use your imagination, even though the trousers are definitely the same as they are throughout the rest of the entire run, you could at least go, yeah, there maybe are brown, but obviously not. And I think the color palette of that figure all sort of matched, so it worked. But with this, I feel like there's just too much contrast between like the reddish color and the cream and the blue. It's all just a bit of a mishmash.
I agree.
I also, and this will get brung up later as well, I think, and this may be the conspiracy theorist coming out in me, think that character options intentionally does these sort of mistakes, so then they have an excuse to re-release a tweaked version of the same figures later on, and you'll buy them all over again.
Yeah, because there is a First Doctor and TARDIS set upcoming later on this year, so I'm thinking a part of the appeal to buy that figure will be he has the correct grey trousers this time.
Yeah, that's probably going to be it. And just real quick, was that sash piece a brand new sculpt that they did, or was that from a previous figure by any chance, having the double sash?
It's a new sculpt.
And there's something I noticed with the sash is because Al mentioned in the video for customizers you can cut it off, cut one of the sashes off to make, I don't know what the rank is, but there's one that wears just one. But they've molded it so that the one that goes over his right shoulder is above it, but the one in the episode, the one that has one, has it over his left shoulder, which means you can't just cut it off. You've got to cut it off and then cut.
Well, you have to swap it around, basically.
Yeah, you'll either have to swap it around or you have to cut the section that overlaps off to make it flat.
To be fair, I'm actually quite glad that Al actually has thought of customizers in the way he's designed the figure. Because if he'd come with like single sash, then it was like, it'd be pretty difficult to make a second one if you wanted to do the Elder. So I'm glad they did it this way around with that in mind.
I think overall, I'm pretty happy with this set. I'm really happy with the Sensorites and especially their head sculpts. I think that captures them really well. The use of the Axon body is used perfectly. I think that is a great way for us to get some more Doctor Who figures, whether it be robots, aliens, or anything like that. I think the only true letdown is just the first Doctor and those dang red pants, those reddish brown pants. I like them in the 13 Doctor set, but I did not want to see those things ever again, just because it makes no sense to re-release it or make it when you already kind of know that you could get cream pants out of it and we'd be okay with buying it.
Something else that I thought might be worth mentioning is that this is the first time the 3-packs have a background on the insert instead of just a white blank piece of card.
Yep, and that is something I actually am a big fan of. For the longest time, I've been telling people that character options should make scene backdrops for their action figure sets. That way, it looks like a little bit of a slice of the episode. So with this new packaging change, I'm actually really, really happy with this. And it almost reminds me of the original Doctor Who sets because they used to have backdrops. So I think it's a great way to come full circle.
They sort of pose them in positions as well.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's like a little setup and scenery. It's really nice, and it's so much better than just the plain white. And also another thing about the packaging is on the back they've actually included like a bio about the episode, which is new. Because before it was just the pictures of the figures and their names, which was a bit stupid, really. Because it's just like you already know that. Yeah, you definitely need a label on the back saying that the first Doctor is the first Doctor.
Now, moving on to the next 3-pack, we have the Keys of Marinus. We'll go right back to you, James. What's your thoughts on this set?
I think I prefer this set to the Sensorite set simply because board they only have one problem that I just have like a little nitpick for them, and that's that their heads. If you look at their heads from the front, they look really thin for some reason, and they just kind of look off. But from the side, they look perfect, and I'm definitely going to display them from the side because from the side, they're like there's nothing wrong with them at all. They look perfect, and they're going to do the job really well. The Ian, I mean, I think we'll all talk about the Ian. It's all right. The head sculpt isn't perfect, but I mean, it'll do. The body is a Saxon Master, which I don't know if it's just me. I've never actually liked the Saxon Master body.
No, I hate that mold.
There's always something that just looks wrong with it. I don't know if it's the body's too long or like.
His legs are too short. He's got really short legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way the
I think
trousers
that is
crease
it.
as well, it's like they're very pointy at the front, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than the Ian body, everything else about this set, except for the like slightly thin heads, everything about this set is just great, in my opinion.
Jack, what are your thoughts on this set?
I think they're ever so slightly better than the Sensorite set. I'm looking at them now. Like James said, that really the only problem I have with the board is that their heads look like they've been squished a bit. Ian is a bit, I don't know, I think he's going to be hit or miss with a lot of people. You're either going to love him or hate him. He's going to be the Marmite of this set, I think. It annoys me that they've missed his eyelashes with the paint, because I think if you added them, he'd look a lot more normal. Because now he sort of looks like he's staring through you instead of, just looking forward.
Yeah, I kind of see that.
And he also doesn't have any color in his eyes as well. It's just like plain black. I feel like he could have done like a bit of blue in there.
And another, and I know this can't be helped with the way that they're doing it, but I've seen Hasbro run into this problem where they're now casting parts of the figures in the plastic of the costumes they have worn instead of painting them that color. They're getting this weird marble effect. And obviously it'll be different with each one you buy. So you could buy one that doesn't have much marbling and then you'll buy another and it looks terrible. So I think they should probably try and figure a way to sort that out. Actually, I do have one positive thing, sorry. I do like the crispness of the paint on Ian's tie. I know that's a really niche, nitpicky thing to, pick out to like, but I think the paint apps on his tie look very, very nice.
But I reckon that'll be a thing when you go to the shops. You'll see ones that are messy.
Yes.
You just got to pick the one that looks best.
Ian, don't you mean the Nigel Farage figure?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a tweet from Richard Lloyd that said it looks like Nigel Farage, and I found that quite funny. We'll finally have a Nigel Farage Doctor Who figure. Great.
It's now canon. Alex, what are your thoughts on this set?
For me, it's a little flawed, but I'm very excited for it in that we're finally getting some more 60s monsters, just like with the Sensorites, Great to see the Vord, although, as James has said, yeah, the heads are a bit sort of squished in, if that makes sense. It's not quite right. But what I do like is, I was so concerned they weren't going to do this, but they actually have added like the circle and triangle pieces that on their heads that are actually different. I honestly thought they'd do like just two of the same one, but they've actually gone to the effort to actually change it. And also one thing I really like is that they have the dagger accessories yet again, pointing out, as I said before, it's great to see accessories with these figures. And not just that, but the daggers can also fit in their little things as well. I don't recall those. The
Pouches.
yeah, the pouches. So that's really good to see. And I like the overall design of the Vord in that sort of webbed hands and the weird flipper feet. So it'd be great to get those. And with Ian, I'm just so glad we've got like a first Doctor companion in the entire Doctor Who range. I mean, it's crazy. But admittedly, yeah, the Saxon Master body, I'm not too sure if I like the fact they've used that. Although it very much depends on what alternatives they had, because for me, I would have used probably the editor's body. I mean, I'm not a fan of the editor's body sculpt, but this suit has 3 buttons, and so does Ian's. So I think that might have been a better choice, but maybe that sculpt is destroyed, and to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me, because it wasn't a great sculpt anyway to keep. So in that case, if that one's not viable, then to be fair, this one is probably the best choice, even though it's not the greatest.
I think this Ian will either be sort of a make it or break it situation, if depending on what body they use for Barbara. Because if Barbara ends up being the same height or taller than him, it's going to be really weird. Because that Saxon's quite short as it is. And also, am I just completely? It's very late here, so maybe it's just me going crazy. But did he even wear this costume in the episode?
No. He wears the Marco Polo sort of, I don't know what you call it, costume. And I think Al said that in the video. They just decided to go for one that was more like iconic for Ian, which, to be honest, I don't mind. But the thing I don't know why they didn't do this is they could have swapped Ian and the first Doctor around and had Ian in the Sensorite set, and then have him in his sort of black jumper, because that would actually be a costume from the story that the set's in.
I doubt they'd want to do a whole 3-pack using Sensorite bodies, though, would they?
Well, I was thinking they could use like the Mickey Smith figure, because that has like a polar neck jumper.
Yeah, they could do that as well.
They could like swap the hands out, and then it's reasonable. But yeah, with this Ian figure, I think the head sculpt, I think in the promo shots it doesn't look good, to be honest. In all fairness, it looks like Nigel Farage, but I think in hand it'll look a lot better. So I'm gonna reserve my judgment upon it until I actually have it in hand. And going back to Jack's point about the fact that the suit's cast in the grey plastic, what's really annoying is it doesn't show up in the promo shots as much, but if you watch any YouTube reviews, like Batman March, for example, you'll see that the plastic that they use for the PVC jacket that wraps around him is like a sort of darker, slightly shinier colour than his arms, and that just really bugs me. And I don't know how much that's going to show up in hand, but if it shows up a lot, then I'm probably going to have to repaint the entire figure in like grey of my own, because otherwise that's going to really annoy me.
For my thoughts on this set, I'm actually really happy with this. I love the Vord figures that they used. I think Character Options did a righteous job on them, especially making great use of that Oxon body. We got the pouch that holds the dagger. We got the sort of vest that goes around them, webbed feet, webbed hands. All of it, that is completely there. That looks exactly like a Vord. Much like you guys, I'm a little disappointed that the heads looked really, really squished inwards, and that just looks rather odd to me, because even looking at like photos or close-ups of the helmet straight on, like it looks like it should flare out more and not be so like tightly inward or anything like that with the way it was sculpted. As for the Ian figure, I think he's pretty nice actually. I actually really do like the face sculpt that they made for it. It's just, I'd say the weirdest part about it is kind of like using that Saxon body with the arms, the way they jut out and everything. It looks a little bit odd, like almost like he has shoulder pads. But overall, I think this represents the 1960s era very well. And I think this is a set that's very much looked forward to by many.
Sorry, could I just say one more thing? I think maybe, because I'm looking at the set now, the thing that's throwing a lot of people off is seeing Ian in colour. Because I don't know. I don't know if it would have.
I mean, that could be it.
I've seen a few, colorizations of the behind the scenes pictures. But to me, whenever someone mentions Ian, I think of him in black and white.
I think we all do, pretty much.
I mean, I've only seen like one colorization of his tie as well, so that tie with those particular coloured stripes looks a little off to me. because you don't really know what the colors are, and even then they don't fully match the colorization we have. So it's a little off, and I've always expected him to have like a plain blue tie if they ever released him. Oddly, I don't know why, but that's just what I've always thought.
That's kind of what I pictured too.
I'm dreading them using this body for Turlo.
Oh, you know what's
But
gonna
I know they're
happen.
gonna
They're going to.
Yeah,
Oh, geez, don't say that, Jack.
I can't deal with it because I know that's exactly what they're going to do as well. I really hope this isn't the only surviving suit mold.
Yeah, because I really hope they like vary it up and use like the James Lester suit from Primeval.
Although the thing about James Lester is the James Lester figure seems to have such a his chest seems to stick out really far.
Yeah, it does. But at least I prefer that body for Turlo than the Saxon Master.
Real quick, James, do you think you'll make a Yartek custom figure?
If I had £1 million to buy the Damon's Master figure, yeah, sure.
Oh,
But-
you think that would be the base that you would use to create it?
Well, there aren't many fully robed figure bodies other than things like Hawthorne, but then it has a sort of opening at the front and everything. So I think the Damon's Master would probably be one of the better ones to use, but then I mean it's one of the rarest figures probably out there. So I'd want to make a Yartek, but probably not for a while.
See, I think you should just make one from just use some like cloth goods or something like that because it's just a white robe, right? Because my thing with the Master in the Damon's outfit is that it's got that textured pattern all over it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that'd be kind of a pain to maybe rework that. Maybe I don't know. But looking at photos of High Priest Yartek or whatever his name is, it almost looks like a bathrobe. Just this fuzzy looking thing, like he's wearing a Snuggie on set. All right, moving on from that. Next up, we got our 2 Dalek sets, and the first one we'll be looking at is the Power of the Dalek set, or History of the Daleks number 5. Right back to you, James. What's your thoughts on this?
I would answer first, but I think Wade, you really need to take this away because I know you have a lot of feelings on this set.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. You want me to kill the mood?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Bring it
Well,
down.
I am a huge Power of the Daleks fan. I have been since I saw it in 2016. I have studied everything about the props and what they used and the colors and whatnot. And this set, I won't lie, it depresses me because this could have been something so great and so amazing. And yet it falls completely flat on its face because of bad decisions. First off, we'll start with the hemispheres. I know that they are the wrong color. That's too light of a blue for the time period. Power Daleks are rather famously known for how darkly colored their hemispheres were compared to every other Dalek before them. They were like this really rich, deep blue, and it's gorgeous looking against the silver. So they completely missed the color on that. It looks like they kind of mimicked it off of the 1960s Power Dalek from the sound effects line, which was okay for its time. I still love that figure and everything. But at the same point, we are now in 2021. We have legitimately colorized photos from Power of the Daleks, and we know what these Daleks should look like. I think they should have easily fixed that. But besides the hemispheres, another problem with it is for the midsection. The front of the gun box has the primer gray color like it should, and it looks very nice like the way it should be. But the back of it, it's all cast in silver. It's underneath where the slats are in the mesh, and it continues the silver, and this just looks ridiculous in my opinion. I won't lie. This bugs the heck out of me because it literally makes no sense how it would happen or why it would happen. Now, Al Duar himself said that this was a mess up at the factory originally, but at the same point, if it was a mess up, why not just have them go back and tweak it or repaint over it? Because a lot of people are saying that it was cast in the silver and then that they paint the gray over it. I just don't see why they couldn't have painted the gray over it just to fix those batches, because this whole entire wave is going to be filled with these silverback Power Daleks, and that just looks weird. As for the guns itself, they look perfect because they use the Remembrance style gun where it's straight. That looks fine in my opinion. Ball joints aren't white this time. One Dalek actually has the mutant scoop, which I think looks very nice actually. And I know some were talking about that they wish it were longer, like the actual prop. I would like that too, but I also recognize that they needed to be able to fit it in the package. So I think it's fine with the way they did it. It would have been awesome though if it had a telescoping effect. That would have been the cherry on top. But speaking of the mutant scoop, why is there no mutant to scoop? It's like an ice cream cone without ice cream. It makes no sense. A lot of people are talking about for customs that they'll use the rubber mutant with the recon Dalek, which is fine and everything. I totally get that. That's a great idea. But characters should have given something. Whether it be a new rubber mutant or I wouldn't exactly want a sculpted one built in, but they had the 3.75 inch files, so they could have done that. It just boggles me why we could not have gotten a mutant in this set when Power of the Daleks is famous for that. I would have preferred having, instead of the green one like the 3.75 inch has, I think it should be silver and gray like the actual props, though I understand why they made it green, just so it stands out against the Dalek. But yeah, it really kills me for that. And then the other Dalek, I personally believe that they should have had the removable gun, because that was another trope of the story, was the fact that there was one Dalek that didn't have the gun because it was removed. And that was, in my opinion, a key part of the story. So they should have done it like the 2013 Fourth Doctor and Genesis Dalek, because they gave us that back in the day. Why couldn't they give us that in 2021 to represent that specific Dalek? And then other than that, the silver looks great and everything. The dome lights look especially good with the frosted effect and not just the straight up clear plastic. And what's funny is the other Power Dalek without the mutant scoop, he's utilizing a 70s eye. Now, this is throwing a lot of people off. Personally, it doesn't bug me, actually. I think character options just got away with it this time. I think it'll overall look pretty nice on the shelf and everything. It's nice to see that they've got the scuffs on the fender once again. That's a great little detail. But for me personally, this set kills me. It could have been so much better, in my opinion. Okay, that's the end of my 10-minute rant. What's your thoughts, James?
I basically share the same sort of opinions on it, but I think the biggest missed opportunity is having the removable gun for that Dalek, because it's such an iconic part of Power of the Daleks, having the Dalek without the gun, who's the servant. And whereas the other things can be customized, you can paint the bit behind the slats, you can mold a mutant in the mutant scoop. Taking the ball joint out is going to be such a pain, to the point where I might just leave it in and just take the gun out.
Yeah, because there's a plate in the back on the inside where the screw is facing inwards. It's not like you can just take a screwdriver up and do it. It's almost like you'd need like a 90-degree angle in order to reach it and take it out to pop out the ball joint.
You could, if you got a really steady hand, just take the gun out and take a drill through the ball joint. Just like a Dremel piece. That's what I would
I
do.
mean, you could, but you're ruining it in a way. But
Yeah, but
it's no different than cracking it open to get to the
Wait,
insides.
how many silver Daleks do we need? These aren't even the right colors anyway, and next year we're gonna get this exact set, but with a mutant and with the right color hemispheres.
Well, I think they should do that. This set, if there was a revision, this set needs a revision. And I think it's inexcusable that Al thought it was okay to release them looking like this when we've gotten better Daleks in the past.
Because the evil set is obviously going to be a guard and then probably just a drone. And the drone will have the darker hemispheres, and he might not have wanted to release that twice, so that might be why these don't have dark hemispheres.
But see, for the time period for Evil, although it would be amazing to get a Wilkie Dalek, but that's besides the point. For Evil, they could. How would I do that? I would have preferred getting the darker hemispheres for Power of the Daleks, and then going back to this color for Evil. Just to match the previous Emperor Guard Daleks that we got from the past, I suppose.
I just don't think I can take much more of any silver and a Dalek in the same sentence. I can't. I'm sick of it. How many sets have we had now?
This will be the fifth one.
We've had 5 sets of silver Daleks. We've got nearly 55 years of history to go through of these Daleks, and we're still getting silver ones.
Well, see, that's the problem with going in chronological order.
No, but didn't Al said that we wouldn't necessarily go in chronological order, and then he backtracked and said, no, we will actually.
Well, I mean, technically it hasn't with this wave because we've skipped a set.
I think other than the evil and the planet ones, I think the rest of it will be in order.
It'll be like 2078 by the time we get Paradigm Daleks.
Maybe they're worried that like maybe this B&M range will get axed at some point, so they don't want to like skip too many numbers ahead because it'll be weird if it's permanently forever just destined to sit there with skipped out numbers.
I don't think they should have numbered them. I think they should have gone History of the Daleks and then had the episode they're from. That way they don't need to
I
go in
agree with
order.
that actually. That would have been a lot better.
I think they did the numbers just to have collectors collect them. Get 1 through 32.
Yeah, to insist that you need all of them.
But Jack, what's your thoughts on this set?
They're naff yet again. They're boring. They're silver again. And this is coming from someone who's my favorite color scheme is silver, but with black. But I'm so sick to death of like silver Daleks. And the only good thing to come from this situation is that there's going to be an abundance of them on eBay. You're going to be able to pick them up for dirt cheap.
Great custom fodder.
Yeah, really good custom fodder. I think, you know what? It would have been really nice to have, because in the episode, the mutant isn't hanging over the edge really that much. So you could have had just a little plastic mutant that could just sit in this scoop, you know.
Yeah, like a
It would be-
removable one. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't even need a plug. You could just have it plop onto the scoop.
That's what I'd want.
You know, instead we've got, Pancake Maker Dalek and another silver drone, basically. I'm not impressed by this set whatsoever. I'm happy that Al is happy with his backdrops though, because if anyone's watched that
That's
video,
what really matters. It's a nice backdrop.
yeah, if anyone's watched that video or been on the forum, Al seems to paint, is more, interested in talking about his new backdrops than he is the figures that he's meant to be promoting. So if you're into collecting backdrops, this is the set for you.
Does anyone actually use the backdrops?
I use the backdrops in like a few bits of photography, and then that's literally it. I'll just never use them again.
I use mine in storage.
I take the figures out, I look at the backdrop, go, are there any Easter eggs? No, shove it back in the loft.
No, I use mine for recycling. That's what I use my backdrops for.
But Alex, what are your thoughts on this set?
Well, I think I'm not as harsh on this set as you guys are, but at the same time, I do agree with a lot of all your criticisms. For me, yeah, I mean the factory error about the on the midsection is really terrible. I mean, it's just baffling that they managed to have that error. Because thing is, they've managed to get it right for literally the past few years, no problems, and then just with this one, this happens. I don't know why. Although what I will say, and really do compliment character on, is the actual grey that they have used, and when they have actually painted it on the bloody figure, is actually a very nice shade. It's a little lighter than what we're used to on most Daleks, but it's definitely darker than the ones we got on the Dalek Master Plan set and the Chase set, which were a horrid pale whitish grey that was made zero sense. It was completely inaccurate and honestly was unacceptable. But with these, I'm definitely happier with these than those ones, in that the grey is so much better. And honestly, when you compare the grey of these to the colour Power of the Daleks pictures, they match, which is good. However, of course, as you guys said though, despite that, they've not made the hemispheres darker like those color references, which does bug me. I really was looking forward to like a deeper blue for the hemispheres, and what's weird is they have actually done the deeper blue on the eye rings, but not the hemispheres for some reason.
Yeah, it's like they swapped them. They technically, and I forgot to mention too, for the eye discs, they could have kept that pale Perspex blue like the Dead Planet ones had. That was the same type of the acrylic or plastic that they used from back in the day. It just boggles me how they messed them up this badly.
And then, yeah, so then with the mutant scoop, honestly, I'm not bothered it doesn't have the mutant. I, as a customizer, can sculpt a mutant on. I just, to be fair, to be completely honest, if you gave me a choice, I would actually have preferred it this way without it. Ultimately, because I could never customize it to be without, but I can customize it to have it on it. But as you guys have said, a removable mutant would have been just the ideal thing to have, and it's so unfortunate they didn't do that. And then same with the other drone Dalek in that it doesn't have the removable gun. Honestly, that was such an obvious one to do, because we've seen a removable gun done before. It's doable, and yeah, and it's definitely more of a prominent feature in Power of the Daleks than it was in Genesis. So the fact they haven't done it is honestly ridiculous. One thing I like is the 70s eye stalk on the drone Dalek. I think that's a good attention to detail. I'm really glad they included that, even though obviously the sculpted pupil looks a little bit off. Honestly, I'm just happy that character went to the attention to detail to realize that the stalks had changed for this story. So honestly, that's really nice to see. So yeah, and then obviously the weathered bases, I'm glad they've made a return. They look really great. So yeah, for me, I'm more lenient on this set than you guys are for sure. I'm pretty happy to get these. Like, I'd say my only huge issue is definitely the factory error with the silver on the midsection. But yeah, it could have been better, but I'm still relatively happy with what we got.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's my problem is I'm just such a huge super fan for Power of the Daleks that when I look at these, I'm like, ugh, come on, character options. Like, really?
I think for me, the for me, it's just the case of they fixed the grey compared to the master plan ones, and for me, that's just a huge deal. Because I cannot stand those pale grey ones. Like honestly, if you gave me the option between this, which is a proper grey but with a factory error on the back, or no factory error but that horrible pale grey, then I'd take this set any day, honestly.
Yeah, I would too. This just barely edges out between the other two. Those are still the worst history of the Dalek sets to date for both Master Plan and the Chase. This is like number 3 spot for worst.
Yeah, but a part of me, honestly, talking back to Jack's little theory, a part of me does think that with especially those chase sets, and the master plan set, that they got it wrong intentionally, so that this Power of the Dalek set and the Evil of the Dalek sets will have like a reason for collectors to buy them because they've corrected a mistake that they made intentionally. That's just a theory, and I might be completely wrong on that. I mean, I just hope characters don't have that sort of level of maliciousness in terms of profiteering, but I mean, it's a possibility.
It is a possibility, but it's like it's so dumb for them to backtrack like that so that they can correct themselves in another wave and then in another wave. And it's just going to go on and on and on, and we're never going to get the accurate products that they're meant to be.
But we still buy them.
Yeah, we still buy them. That's our fault too. But this set might have disappointed me, but this next one I am really happy for, and I can say for a fact that it's my favorite one out of everything that they announced. Next up, we have History of the Daleks number 7 for Day of the Daleks. James, tell us your thoughts on this set.
I think this is the one set that doesn't have a single setback to it. It is just perfect. I can't fault it in any way. Gunmetal Grey Dalek looks beautiful. The Gold Dalek looks beautiful. They're both very well. I mean, we've got the Gold Dalek before, but they're both figures we've wanted for ages. And the fact that they've got the mesh on the Gold Dalek correct this time, I mean, I don't think there's a single thing wrong with it.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that statement. When I look at these Daleks, this is what I expect from character options. Jack, what are your thoughts?
I love it. I think agreeing with, used to, and I'm sure Alex will agree, I think this is possibly my favourite Dalek, History of the Dalek set to date. The golden one's nice, but we've had a variation of him before. But I love the gunmetal colour on this Dalek. It is, I think, some of the best looking paint they've used so far. I think it might even beat out the really shiny silver they've been using.
Yeah, that I can agree with. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Well, for me, yet again, honestly, I'd say this is objectively the best set of the wave. Oh, it's not my personal favorite. There's difference in that, but yeah. Yeah, it's objectively the best set, I think. There's no real flaws with it at all. The Gold Supreme is, honestly, I'm so glad they've perfected it from the original one that obviously had the inaccurate mesh and the incorrect ball joints. I'm so glad they fixed all of that. It looks so nice and screen accurate. But as Jack said, I adore the gunmetal grey Dalek. I honestly think it is the best classic Dalek figure we've had in absolutely ages. I think it's just perfect. It's just such a nice color, and everything about it is just spot on. And really, I mean, this would be my favorite History of the Dalek set if it wasn't for the fact the Dalek Invasion of Earth ones have that like weathering on the base. I just think that's just gorgeous, and I didn't get those originally, so for me they're very new in nature. But if it wasn't for that particular set in that sort of scenario, I think honestly this is the best History of the Dalek sets we've had so far. It's just leaps and bounds better than what we've had before, and I think honestly it's surprising it's taken this long to do a gunmetal grey Dalek. It's really crazy, and it's just so much better.
This is technically the first of its kind.
Yeah, and it's so much better than any of the sort of plain flat grey Daleks, because I've never been a fan of like the grey Daleks. I've never really been drawn to them like some people have. But for me, the gunmetal just makes it look perfect. It really gives off that real warrior tank machine that Daleks really should be. So yeah, and then my only gripe when I first saw this set, and I say first saw because I've warmed to it now, but it's the bases. The bases are the Imperial Dalek bases, which are used to reflect the rubber fender they have at the bottom. And yeah, for me, I actually think they work for 70s Daleks in that it is essentially pretty much correct. But if you look at the props from Day of the Daleks, they have like basically what I can only describe as bin bags on the bases. So ultimately they do end up actually looking pretty flat and smooth. They don't have that ridge in them, unless if it's from like certain angles that sometimes the bin bags will like fold or whatever, in which case you can see that sort of ridge in it. But overall, they probably should be flat on these. But I think if they use these bases moving forward on other 70s Daleks, I'll be very appreciative of that, because especially on like Genesis Daleks and things like that, they definitely look like this. So yeah, it's a very, very minor gripe, and honestly, I'm very quickly, warming to it anyway, but it's just something to mention.
This is something completely random, but I would love a Death Zone Dalek now.
It would look pretty sick.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
I really want one now. But yeah, maybe that could be another set. You know how they did the Imperial Dalek and Ace and Davros and the 12th Doctor? Maybe they could do
They could
a
do the Herndl
season.
First Doctor and the Death Zone Dalek.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah, he would be a neat one to get.
That'd be a perfect twin pack.
Now, I think this set is pretty dang perfect. I'd be willing to bet it's 99.9% perfect. Really quick about the fenders, what Alex said. Prop-wise, 70s bases are taller than the 60s ones. 60s are very low to the ground. 70s is when they started raising them up higher for the caster wheels. And then they had like this rubber liner going across the bottom. But prop-wise, there is an actual ridge like that where there's the wooden fender that goes around the skirt at the bottom, and then inwards there's the actual rubber liner attached from the bottom going to the top of it at the bottom. I really think the bases are utilized really effectively here. I think they did a dang good job at it. I can't wait to see more of these utilized because they make more sense in my mind, especially after I built my own life-size Dalek. My only thing that's wrong is I believe for the fender and this is such a nitpick really, for the Gold Supreme Dalek, the top of his fender actually should have the gold paint. And I can't tell,
It does on the figure. It does.
did character paint it on, or is that just reflecting off of it?
In the promo, it looks like it has it, but I don't know.
It does have it. It does have it.
Yeah, it's so hard to see. It looks like it does have it, and if they do have it, that is absolute perfection right there. If they don't, it's okay if they missed it. It's such a minor detail.
In a review, someone had it, and it does have gold on the top. You can't really see it in the promo pictures.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell.
I
But
didn't notice that, but honestly, that is such good attention to detail if that's true.
yeah, that is true attention to detail, and it's so hard to tell in the promo images, but until I get it in hand, I'm just going to assume it has the paint. That is absolute perfection right there, ladies and gentlemen. Like, the colors are just spot on for how they did both the gold, but I'm a sucker for the gunmetal gray Dalek. Much like Alex, I have fought in every forum my entire life saying that Day of the Daleks and Planet of the Daleks are better paint-wise and look-wise than Genesis of the Dalek. Genesis is fine and all. Gunmetal gray is way cooler than the Genesis Battleship gray. Easily.
Yeah, the Genesis Grey is honestly so boring. I don't know why people like it so much. It's literally the worst classic Dalek design. I'm sorry, it really is. The gunmetal's so much better, and I honestly don't know why they downgraded. I don't even know why they downgraded from the Death of the Daleks design as well, because that's the best classic color scheme. So what on earth are they thinking when they repainted those props for Genesis? I just don't know.
I know, into this like wheelie bin grey turd colour. It's like just...
Yeah, they look cheap. They look like cheap wheelie bin grey. Exactly. It's awful.
And also they were like slapping that paint on, really liberally, There was like
Oh
lumps.
yeah, it's
They shot it out
sloppy.
of a cannon. It's disgusting looking. They literally look like wheelie bins.
But yeah, these two Daleks here, I'd almost say I'm having a really hard time saying if this is better than History of the Daleks 1 with the Dead Planet Daleks. I thought Character did a really nice job with those. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those, which I'm really bummed about. But these ones, honestly, I might just say this is my new favorite number one just for the podcast because these Daleks are absolute perfection. I literally can't fault them in any way. They look exactly the way they should look. They're just absolute perfection in all honesty. And especially if they got the top of that fender painted, that will like make my day.
The fact they managed to paint the top of the fender on the Gold Supreme, but couldn't paint the back of the Power Dalek.
Seriously.
And the backdrop has Easter eggs in it.
But yeah, their backdrop's also kind of cool because isn't that the little alleyway where they come out of from the tunnel?
Under the bridge, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. It's such an iconic scene from that story. They did a nice job with this set. I think I can legitimately say this is my new favorite number one.
Yeah, until they bring out the paradigms.
Oh yeah, baby. If you had to pick one set today, that's your favorite thing that they announced, what would your number one pick be? James, what would be your number one favorite?
Depending on set and figure, I think set, as much as I nitpicked it, the Sensorite set is one that, because I've always wanted Sensorites, that I'm excited about the most to get. But actual figures, the Vord, I know I just said everything about the Day of the Dalek set is amazing, but I mean, we've had Daleks before, we know what Daleks are, and the fact that we've got Vord and they look so good, apart from the slightly squished faces, everything else about the Vord looks fantastic. So those are the figures I'm most excited for, but the Sensorite set in general is the one I'm most excited for. Even though I just nitpicked them to hell, I'm still most excited for those two. You're not a fan if you don't hate and love it.
Yeah. Jack, what is your number one pick?
Two answers. I would say as a collector, my favorite pick is Day of the Daleks, and as a customizer, it would be the Sensorite set because it's great fodder potential, really.
That's another pretty good choice. Alex, what about you?
For me, my personal favorite set is Sensorites, just because I've wanted Sensorites for quite a while now. Because ever since I saw the story a few years ago, I was like, they make such a cool figure, and they could use the Axon Man body, and well, here we are. They've done it, and it's fantastic. Honestly, the first Doctor has been annoying, to be fair, but I might customize it or something. I don't know yet. But objectively speaking, I think the best set is the Day of the Daleks set by a country mile. It's perfect. You can't fault it, unlike any of the other sets, which you can sort of point out is slight issues with them. So yeah, for me, Sensorite's like my personal favorite. Day of the Daleks, objectively the best.
Yeah, for me, I'm your basic fan saying that the Day of the Daleks set is my number one favorite. I think that is just absolute perfection looking at it, and that's what I expect from character options, especially at this stage in the game.
So it's honestly fantastic to see that we have so many 1960s characters being released. Honestly, the fact we've got Ian, I mean, he's not perfect, but honestly, the fact we even have a First Doctor companion is honestly fantastic. And the fact we have the Vord and the Sensorites, honestly, did we ever really think we'd see this ever happen? These sort of relatively obscure 60s monsters, it's honestly a real delight to see them. And to think the character have got to the point where these sets are so successful that they can do characters like this rather than sort of mainstream Classic Who with like Tom Baker and things like that. That we're actually at this point where we can have this sort of stuff is honestly great, even if it's not like perfect.
I do think you're right because I mean, how long ago was it when I was saying Classic Who doesn't sell well?
And that will never get Classic Who companions at 1.2.
Yeah, I think it's also good to say that as much as we are nitpicking these sets, and I personally I know I've come across as quite negative about these sets, but I am genuinely thankful that as a fan and a collector that we are getting these, like what Alex said. It's nice that we're in that position.
Yeah, and we
Exactly.
nitpick these to death, but we're all the simps that are going to buy all these, so the joke's
yeah.
on us, I suppose.
We're like every type of fandom where really you only hate on certain things because you love it, really, if that makes sense. And I think we're very happy about these, but of course we have expectations, and ultimately if they're not met necessarily, then we are going to point those things out. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we're unhappy or not going to buy them or that we're going to write angry letters and emails to character options going, oh, you did it wrong and we hate you and all that. It's not going to happen because ultimately I think character putting in the absolute best effort that they can, even if there are the odd flaws along the way, I think we've got to be forever grateful that we're getting these figures at all.
Also, I've got one other thing I would like to say. I would love, especially now Al is, really getting into his backdrops and stuff, if there was some sort of archive on the CO website for the digital uploads of the backdrops he's made. 'Cause I think they'd be great to have for like dioramas and stuff.
That'd be a neat idea. Yeah, I'm excited to see backdrops being used because this is something I've wanted since day one, and I think they're utilizing it very well. Well, I think that'll bring this episode to a close. I'd like to thank James for joining us in on this discussion.
Thank you for inviting me.
Also like to thank Jax. What? I'd also
I'm a
like to
rabbit.
thank. Yeah, you're Jackson.
Yeah,
I'd like to thank Jack for joining in on this discussion too.
it's been good. It's been fun.
Also, thank you to Alex for joining us.
Yeah, it's been great, honestly, talking about these new sets. I mean, we've been waiting for quite a while to actually talk about these because of all the leaks that have happened. So, yeah, it's been great talking.
Yes, thank you guys so much for doing this with me. And last but not least, I'd also like to thank you, the audience members, for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed it, be sure to share it with your friends. And also be sure to like and subscribe. The goal of this podcast series is to cover the history of all Doctor Who figures and toys. So be sure to stay tuned for more. I'm your host, Wade, and this is the Parliament of the Daleks.